My alien classmate stepped into my room and froze when they saw me to him. It was small, quiet, and safe. The walls were smooth and gray like every other student dorm at the academy. The light panel near the ceiling glowed softly, always warm, never too bright. His desk was cluttered with data pads, notes, and half-finished assignments that only made sense to him. A simple human bed rested near the corner, its blanket slightly messy in a way that no machine would ever allow. To Evan, it was just a place where he could finally breathe. To everyone else, it was just the room of a human exchange student, an unimportant space belonging to an unimportant species. That belief would not last long. The Interstellar Academic Union was proud of its order. Every species followed strict schedules. Every student respected protocol. Privacy was defined, regulated, and rarely violated. So when Salith received the task to retrieve Evan for a late evaluation discussion, they did not hesitate. The academy records showed Evan was in his dorm. The door access code was listed. No warnings appeared. Salith pressed the panel. The door slid open, and Salith stopped moving. The room was quiet but not calm. Evan stood in the center, barefoot on the smooth floor. Around him floated several translucent holographic displays, each moving at a different speed. Symbols, numbers, maps, and shifting models overlapped in the air like layers of thought given shape. Some showed star systems. Others showed timelines branching and collapsing. One displayed a list of names and probabilities, constantly rearranging themselves. Evan's eyes moved rapidly, not focused on one thing, but on many. His fingers twitched slightly, as if typing on an invisible keyboard. His lips moved as he spoke softly to himself, words overlapping. No, that fails too early, okay, but if supply lines shift, wait, that makes it worse. Unless morale changes, why would morale change? His voice carried different tones at once, curious, frustrated, amused, worried, all blending without breaking. Salith's body reacted before their mind did, every muscle locked. Their species evolved for clarity, one thought at a time. One emotion, carefully processed, carefully controlled. Too much input caused neural strain. That was why their people used dampeners, training, and strict mental discipline. What Evan was doing should not have been possible. Salith's internal translator struggled to describe what their sensors detected. Evan's heart rate was elevated but steady. His stress indicators spiked and dropped in quick cycles. His brain activity, according to the room's passive systems, was far beyond normal student limits. And yet he was not in distress. He looked comfortable. Evan finally noticed the open door. "Oh, sorry," he said quickly, waving one hand. Several holograms shrank and drifted aside, but did not disappear. "I didn't hear you come in. I should have locked it." Salith could not speak. Evan tilted his head. "Are you okay?" That question broke something. Salith took a single step backward, their eyes scanning the room again. The simulations were not random exercises. Salith recognized the markers now. These were first contact scenarios, emergency response models, cultural collapse predictions. Several simulations showed large-scale failure. Several showed recovery. In many of them, a small symbol appeared repeatedly near the turning point, a human symbol. "You created these?" Salith asked slowly. Evan glanced around, embarrassed. Yeah, just thinking stuff through." "Thinking," Salith repeated. Evan shrugged. "It helps me relax." Salith's mind reeled. Their people relaxed by reducing thought, by entering controlled mental stillness. What Evan was doing was the opposite, adding more, stacking possibilities, allowing contradictions to exist side by side. "How long have you been thinking?" Salith asked. Evan frowned as if the question was strange. "I don't know, since dinner." That was several standard hours ago. Salith forced themselves to breathe slowly. "Human Evan, do you require assistance?" Evan blinked. "No, I'm fine." He sounded genuinely confused. Salith looked again at the simulations. One showed an academy-wide system failure caused by a minor misunderstanding between species. Another showed a peaceful resolution triggered by a human student making an emotionally illogical but socially effective decision. "You predicted these outcomes?" Salith asked. "Not predicted," Evan said. "Just wondered about them. Stuff like this helps me sleep." Sleep. Salith's mind struggled to place that word in this context. Their communicator vibrated softly. The academy system had noticed the cognitive spike in the dorm. A quiet alert meant only for staff and monitors. Salith did not answer it. Instead, they did something unusual. They asked permission. "May I enter fully?" Salith said. Evan smiled faintly. "Sure." Salith stepped inside. The door slid closed behind them. The room felt small now, heavy with unseen pressure. Not physical pressure, mental presence. As if the walls themselves were listening to too many thoughts at once. "You are not required to simulate these scenarios," Salith said carefully. "I know," Evan replied. He moved toward his desk and sat, rubbing his eyes. Some of the holograms faded, but a few remained, drifting lazily. "I just do it. If I don't, my brain keeps going anyway." "Without control?" Salith asked. "With control," Evan corrected gently. "Just loose control." Salith did not understand how that could be different. "You are aware," Salith said, "that prolonged cognitive overload can cause permanent harm." Evan laughed quietly. Not mocking, just tired. "Yeah, humans say that about everything." Salith studied him. Evan looked ordinary now, just a human student in simple clothes, shoulders slightly hunched, eyes showing signs of exhaustion. No sign of power, no sign of threat. And yet Salith felt unsettled in a way they had never experienced before. "How many thoughts are you processing right now?" Salith asked. Evan paused. He seemed to think about it, then smiled apologetically. "I don't really count. A lot, I guess. Some loud, some quiet." "And emotions?" Salith asked. "Also, yes." Salith's species required emotional separation to function. Emotion during analysis was considered dangerous. Humans, it seemed, did not separate them at all. They layered them. Salith stepped back toward the door. "I believe," Salith said slowly, "that there may be inaccuracies in the Academy's understanding of human cognition." Evan scratched his head. "We've been saying that." Salith stopped at the doorway. Their communicator vibrated again, more insistently now. They opened a private channel and spoke in a low voice. "Observation report," Salith said. "Immediate note, human cognitive limits may be inaccurately classified." The message sent. Salith looked back at Evan one last time. Evan had already turned back to his desk. Another simulation flickered to life beside him, showing a calm outcome where dialogue prevented disaster. Evan smiled slightly at it, as if relieved. Salith closed the door. For the first time since joining the Academy, Salith felt something unfamiliar. Concern, not fear. Not hostility. Concern, because if this was what humans did when no one was watching, then the galaxy did not truly know them at all. And that ignorance might one day matter. Very much. The Academy did not react loudly. That was the first strange thing. There were no alarms, no announcements, no sudden changes in schedule. Classes continued. Students walked the wide halls as usual. The artificial sky above the central dome shifted calmly from blue to gold as it always did. But behind closed doors, something had changed. Salith stood inside a quiet observation chamber, hands folded tightly behind their back. Across the room, several senior faculty members watched a projection taken directly from Evan's dorm room logs. Not video, but data. Numbers, graphs, neural activity patterns. Silence filled the room. "This must be an error," one of the faculty members said at last. "The sensors may be malfunctioning." "They are not," Salith replied. Their voice was steady, but effort showed beneath it. "I witnessed the behavior directly." Another faculty member adjusted their display. "The human was not in distress." "No," Salith said. "He was relaxed." That word seemed to trouble them all. Human cognitive activity exceeded most species' emergency thresholds even during rest cycles. Yet the data showed recovery, balance, and even improved emotional stability afterward. "This is not training behavior," one faculty member said. "This is instinctive." "Yes," Salith agreed, "and private." The room grew quieter. The Academy prided itself on understanding. Species profiles filled entire libraries. Weaknesses, strengths, limits. Humans had been categorized as emotionally unstable but creatively useful. Socially adaptable, physically average, mentally unremarkable. That classification no longer held. Meanwhile, Evan sat in class unaware. He listened as his instructor explained interstellar trade ethics, tapping his foot lightly. Part of his attention followed the lecture. Another part wandered, replaying the previous night in his head. He wondered if he had embarrassed Salith. He wondered if he should apologize later. He also wondered if the Academy cafeteria would ever learn how to cook rice properly. The thoughts overlapped without effort. When class ended, Evan gathered his things and stood. As he turned, he noticed something different. Students were watching him, not openly, not rudely, but carefully. Whispers followed him down the hall. Some students stepped aside without realizing it. Others stared, then looked away quickly. A few looked thoughtful. Evan frowned. By the time he reached his dorm, Salith was waiting outside his door. This time they did not stand rigid. This time their posture was careful. "You may enter if you wish," Evan said, opening the door. Salith hesitated, then stepped inside. They stood near the doorway as if unsure how far was safe. "I did not intend to violate your privacy," Salith said. "I know," Evan replied. "It's okay." Salith studied him. "The Academy has questions," Evan sighed. "Yeah, that figures." "They wish to understand how humans think," Salith continued. Evan gave a small smile. "Good luck." Salith tilted their head. "You believe it cannot be explained?" "It can," Evan said, "just not simplified." Salith considered this. "Would you be willing to try?" Evan hesitated. He looked around his room, then nodded. "Sure, I guess." Later that day, Evan found himself seated in the same observation chamber Salith had stood in earlier. He sat casually, legs crossed, hands resting on his knees. Around him stood beings from many species, all watching quietly. "You may speak freely," one faculty member said. Evan shrugged. "Okay." He took a breath. "I think a lot," he said simply. "We all do, humans, I mean. We think when we're bored, we think when we're scared. We think when we're happy. Sometimes thinking hurts, but stopping hurts more." The faculty exchanged looks. "You do not rest your mind?" one asked. "We do," Evan said. "Just not by shutting it down, we let it wander." "And the emotional instability?" another asked. Evan laughed softly. "That's not instability, that's data." The room stilled. "Feelings tell us what matters," Evan continued. "Fear says something's wrong, hope says something might work, stress means we care. We don't remove those things, we use them." Salith felt something shift inside their chest, understanding, perhaps. "You simulate disasters," a faculty member said. "Why?" Evan's expression grew serious. "Because if I imagine them first, they scare me less later." That answer lingered in the air. After the meeting, Evan returned to his room feeling drained. Thinking was easy. Explaining thinking was hard. He lay on his bed, staring at the ceiling. His thoughts slowed, then drifted. Elsewhere, the Academy rewrote files. Human cognitive profile under review. Human privacy protocols updated. New guidelines appeared quietly in the system. Never interrupt a human's private space without consent. Never assume silence means inactivity. Never underestimate informal thought. Days passed. The changes spread beyond the Academy. Reports traveled to interstellar councils. Discussions followed. Carefully worded messages replaced older assumptions. Humans were not dangerous because they were aggressive. They were dangerous because they adapted without being told to. Salith visited Evan often after that. Sometimes they talked, sometimes they sat in silence. Salith learned that humans did not fear contradiction, they lived with it. They learned that humans could hold sadness and humor at the same time, worry and hope, logic and emotion. One evening, Salith asked a question they had been carrying for days. "When do humans stop thinking?" they asked. Evan smiled, tired but kind. "We don't. We just learn which thoughts to ignore." Salith understood then. The galaxy did not need to fear humans. The galaxy needed to understand them, because humans would keep thinking long after others stopped. And when the universe grew quiet, that would matter more than anyone realized. The Academy lights dimmed into night cycle. In his room, Evan closed his eyes. His thoughts wandered. But for once, they were calm. It arrived quietly, the way humans often did. At the Academy, new rules slowly became habits. Doors were knocked on instead of opened. Humans were given more private time, not because they asked for it, but because others had learned it mattered. Faculty members adjusted how they spoke around human students, choosing words more carefully, leaving space for questions instead of rushing answers. Evan noticed, even if he did not understand it fully. He noticed that conversations paused when he entered a room. Not out of fear, but respect. He noticed that Salith listened more than they spoke now, watching him with thoughtful eyes instead of confused ones. He noticed that some alien students began asking him strange questions. "How do humans decide when to stop?" one asked. "Stop what?" Evan replied. "Thinking," the student said. Evan smiled. "We don't, we just take breaks." The student did not understand the answer, but they wrote it down anyway. Outside the Academy, the galaxy was paying attention. Human representatives were invited to councils that once ignored them, not because humans demanded power, but because others wanted insight. Quiet questions were asked. Data was reviewed again and again. Old assumptions cracked under new understanding. Humans did not bring order. They brought movement. Salith read every report they could find. They spent long hours studying human psychology, not from official documents, but from human stories. Fiction, music, personal journals shared willingly by humans who did not think their thoughts were special. That was the strangest part. Humans did not think they were exceptional. One evening, Salith visited Evan's room again. They knocked first. "Come in," Evan said. The room looked calmer now. Fewer holograms floated in the air. Evan sat at his desk, writing by hand on a physical notebook. The pen scratched softly. "You are not simulating," Salith observed. "I did earlier," Evan said. "Now I'm just sorting things." "In writing?" Salith asked. "Yeah, help slow stuff down." Salith stepped closer, careful not to intrude. "The councils have reached a conclusion." Evan glanced up. "Oh," Salith tilted their head. "That is not a negative sound, is it?" "Depends what comes after," Evan said. Salith allowed a small pause. "Humans are now classified as cognitively divergent." Evan blinked. "That sounds fancy." "It is not an insult," Salith said quickly. "It means the galaxy recognizes that human thought does not follow standard limits." Evan leaned back. "We tried telling you." "Yes," Salith said softly, "you did." The silence between them was comfortable. "Does that change anything?" Evan asked. "Yes," Salith replied. "You will be asked to help." Evan frowned. "With what?" "With understanding," Salith said. "And with problems others cannot solve." Evan looked uncertain. "I'm just a student." Salith met his eyes. "So are we all." Days later, the Academy faced its first real test. A communication relay between three allied systems began failing, not breaking, not shutting down. Just drifting, messages arrived late or out of order. Emotional tone was lost in translation. Small misunderstandings grew. The council asked for technical experts. The experts failed. They asked for diplomats. The diplomats made it worse. Finally, someone suggested a human. Evan sat in a quiet room listening to recordings. He did not speak at first. He did not analyze data on a screen. He closed his eyes and listened to voices, tones, pauses, hesitations. "They're scared," Evan said eventually. "That is not indicated," a council member replied. "No threat has been made." "Yeah," Evan said, "that's why they're scared." The room fell silent. "They don't want to lose control," Evan continued. "But they also don't want to admit they're confused, so they're speaking carefully instead of honestly." "How do you know this?" another asked. Evan shrugged. "Because I do that too." He suggested something simple, not a new system, not a protocol, a conversation, one without recording, without official titles, without pressure. It worked. The relay stabilized, trust returned. The crisis ended quietly. The council wrote long reports trying to explain why. They failed. Back at the academy, Salith watched Evan walk through the halls, still just a student, still carrying his bag slightly crooked, still worrying about small things like homework and cafeteria food. Nothing about him looked powerful. And yet, Salith realized something important. Humans were not designed to lead. They were designed to respond. To uncertainty, to chaos, to emotional complexity. Where others froze, humans moved. Where others waited for rules, humans created meaning. One night, Salith asked Evan a question they had been avoiding. "Do humans know how different they are?" Salith asked. Evan thought about it. "Some do, some don't, most don't care." "Why?" Salith asked. Evan smiled. "Because being different is normal to us." Salith felt a strange warmth at that answer. As months passed, more humans arrived at the academy. They were watched carefully at first, then more gently. Alien students learned that humans talked to themselves, laughed at stress, imagined worst-case futures, and still hoped for the best. They learned that humans could break under pressure and still stand up again. The galaxy adjusted, not because humans forced it to, but because humans kept thinking even when others rested. One evening, Evan stood alone in the central dome, looking up at the artificial stars. Salith joined him. "Do you ever wish your mind was quieter?" Salith asked. Evan considered the question. "Sometimes, but then I remember that the noise is also where the ideas live." Salith nodded slowly. The universe was vast, cold, uncertain. And somewhere inside it, humans were thinking. Not to conquer, not to dominate, just to understand. And that the galaxy was learning might be the most powerful thing of all. Evan smiled at the stars, unaware that somewhere far away, entire civilizations were quietly rewriting their future, simply because one human student had been thinking in his room. The galaxy did not change because of one decision. It changed because of many small ones. After the relay incident, councils across multiple systems began asking for human observers. Not leaders, not commanders, just humans to sit in the room and listen. At first, this request confused everyone, including the humans themselves. Evan received his first invitation during breakfast. He stared at the message on his datapad while slowly chewing a piece of toast. "They want me to do what?" he asked. Salith sat across from him, carefully sipping a warm nutrient drink. "Attend a discussion, observe. Respond if you wish," Evan frowned. "That sounds like pressure." Salith considered this. "They have been instructed not to pressure you." "That makes it worse," Evan muttered. Still he went. The room was larger than the academy chamber, with long, curved walls and soft lighting meant to calm multiple species at once. Representatives sat in quiet groups, their body language careful, controlled. When Evan entered, the room shifted slightly, not dramatically. Just enough for him to notice. He took an empty seat near the edge. The discussion was slow, too slow. They spoke in exact words, double-checking meanings, repeating phrases to avoid error. Every sentence felt heavy, like it carried fear beneath it. Evan listened. His foot tapped, his thoughts wandered, then circled back. Eventually, someone asked him a question. "Human Evan," the speaker said, "do you have any insight?" Evan blinked. Yeah, kind of." The room leaned in. "You're all trying very hard not to upset each other," Evan said carefully. "That's good, but you're also not saying what you actually mean." Silence followed. "That is necessary," someone replied. "Misunderstanding causes conflict." "Yeah," Evan said. "But so does pretending you're not confused." The room stayed quiet. "I think," Evan continued, "you're all scared of being wrong. Humans are wrong all the time, we just work around it." Salith watched from the back of the room. They felt something like pride. The meeting ended without a clear decision, but something had shifted. Over the following weeks, humans became a quiet presence in many places, not because they demanded space, but because others made room. Humans asked questions that seemed simple and answers that felt incomplete. They laughed at tense moments. They admitted confusion openly. This made others uncomfortable. Then it made things easier. Evan struggled with the attention. He was still a student. He still missed home. He still worried about grades and deadlines. Some nights he lay awake, thoughts racing faster than ever. One night, Salith found him sitting on the floor, back against the bed, staring at nothing. "You are overwhelmed," Salith said. Evan smiled weakly. "Yeah. Guess that happens to humans too." "You do not have to help everyone," Salith said. "I know," Evan replied, "but thinking about it doesn't stop just because I want it to." Salith sat beside him. They said nothing. That was enough. Elsewhere, the galaxy faced a problem no one could solve. An ancient navigation network, older than any current species, began showing errors. Not failures, contradictions. The maps disagreed with themselves. Routes changed depending on who looked at them. Most species panicked. Humans grew curious. A small group of human thinkers was invited to study the issue. Evan joined them, uncertain but willing. They did not start with data. They started with questions. "What if the system isn't broken?" one human asked. "What if it's responding?" another suggested. "What if it was never meant to be stable?" Evan said quietly. That idea changed everything. They realized the network adjusted based on expectation. Species that demanded certainty caused collapse. Species that accepted uncertainty found paths. The solution was not control, it was trust. When the findings were shared, the galaxy hesitated. Then slowly it listened. Trade routes stabilized. Exploration resumed. The network did not become perfect, but it became usable. Once again, humans did not fix the problem. They reframed it. Salith read the final report late into the night. One line stayed with them. "Humans do not seek certainty, they seek continuity." Salith thought of Evan's room, the overlapping thoughts, the emotional noise. The calm beneath it all, they understood now. The galaxy had spent ages trying to remove chaos. Humans had learned to live inside it. At the academy, a new course was introduced, not required, just available. Human thought patterns and introduction. The class filled immediately. Evan was asked to speak on the first day. He stood at the front, nervous, hands in his pockets. "I don't have a plan," he said honestly. "I just think." The students listened. Some took notes. Some just watched. That was enough. Time passed. Graduation approached. Evan stood once more under the artificial stars, Salith beside him. "Will you return to your homeworld?" Salith asked. "Yeah," Evan said. "Eventually." "And then?" Salith asked. Evan smiled. I'll keep thinking, guess that's what we do. Salith looked up at the stars. The galaxy will feel quieter without you. Evan laughed softly. Trust me, humans don't really leave. They stood together in silence. Somewhere far away, a council revised another protocol. Somewhere else, a human asked a question that made no sense and changed everything. Somewhere, uncertainty was no longer feared as much as before. The universe remained vast and unknowable. But now it was being thought about, and that made all the difference.